Hello, everyone, and welcome to this session with talented Darek Sabroki. We are very excited to have you all here in this creative chaos of Connected Inc. 2021. And we are very excited about the session today, which is Concept Art, a Dream Job. Just a little bit before we start our session, something about Darek Sabroki. Some of you know it. He is a very renowned art director, concept designer, and CEO of Focal Point School from Poland. He started drawing when he was 3 years old, and it's his biggest passion. He has worked with a lot of big companies such as Sony, EA Sports. He has participated in Assassin's Creed and many other very interesting projects in films and animation. So, yeah, without further ado, let's hear it from the man himself, Darek.
Thank you very much for having me again. It's always a pleasure to prepare something for you guys and for amazing introduction. I think you've said, because I don't really like to introduce myself that well, so I think you did a good job. Anyway, I'm happy that we can be here, and I prepared another of this series of the talk that I do on a little bit behind the scene of the concept art, and like what is really the reality of what's the real reality of like working in this industry. That's actually beautiful, but at the same time very demanding. So my talk will be about, is it really a dream job being a concept artist? So I'm gonna share my screen. Let me know if you guys can see that. I hope everything works, right? So the title on that I just picked up was because I basically had this idea of doing this sort of stuff for a while, like showing a little bit of like how it is really from the kitchen, from how do you basically cook all those things on a daily basis, not practically only, but how do you have to deal with things as a concept artist on a daily basis, right? So of course, as Gerardo mentioned in the beginning, I started when I was very young, but I didn't really knew it's gonna be my job, it's gonna be my profession. So I, of course, was like a small kid doing paintings, doing drawings all the time, like being inspired by cartoons and like movies from the very early ages. When I was 3, I guess, I started, I think this photo is from when I was 4 or 5. As you can see, I made a little bit of like a timeline of how the things progressed along the way and how the topics changed. As you can see, 94 was basically when I was 3 years old, and I was doing all those like crazy dino scenes, because it was a time that Jurassic Park was very big. In the first time that it hit theaters, and when I was small, I always liked to snatch a little bit of moment and look up those like sci-fi or fantasy movies that maybe weren't even for like a small kids, but yeah, it kept me hyped, it kept me inspired, and my interest in like sci-fi fantasy grew from them. Like I was born in Gdańsk, which is the city, like a very much old town driven. So I did also like drawings of architecture, the streets. I really liked like walking outside and like do a little bit of drawings in the old town. But I always was somehow affected and inspired by sci-fi genre or like a fantasy genre in my works. And in 2003, I think it was a time that I played Quake on my PC. These are basically like still like childhood times, but basically everything that starts to grow in me. Like I really want to do like my own stuff. So I got inspired, of course, by existing IPs, but I always wanted to do something on my own. I didn't know that concept art is a profession. Of course, maybe by watching some documentaries on like how blockbuster movies were made, I knew that there are artists that work for movies and design all those like creatures and monsters and the worlds, but I didn't even know it's in my possibilities, right? It's in my range. So I basically kept on doing what I love. In 2007, I basically switched totally from doing drawings on paper and and start like working on tablet. And I remember when I got my first tablet, it was actually Wacom Graphire, and I used it a lot, you know, like 15 hours a day, and like it was properly weathered by using that all the time. So of course I progressed with that, even though the beginnings in digital media were really hard for me, because I had to really switch my mind from basically drawing on paper to paint on the canvas.
How was it, this transition, Derek, from analog to digital?
For me at the beginning, it was like it was crazy, because I felt like this is the technology that I really want to catch up with, but I felt like I'm missing something all the time, and I knew that it's not something that I didn't want to replicate my drawing style on top of my digital artworks, and I wanted to start like painting. And even though I didn't paint before that much, so I had to learn all the colors, all the paints, all the shading, values from scratch, you know, because I felt much more, it felt much more intuitive to draw on the tablet. But I wanted to create the scenes, because I was inspired by some artists like, you know, Craig Mullins or Mark O'Connor back then. And I really, I saw that this is possible, but, you know, I knew I have a lot ahead of me to learn. And of course, in 2007, that you didn't have that many possibilities to learn things from like YouTube. You know, now you have huge amount of information, and to be honest, I think it's a little bit overwhelming even these days. You know, but back then you had basically no possibilities, and I was coming from you know, small family in Poland, and yeah, it's kind of cliche, but I can say that, yeah, we didn't have that much money, so I couldn't really afford like super crazy expensive courses. And I think actually back then the only ones that I felt like were super awesome were Gnomon workshops, and I basically downloaded them from torrents, you know. So I didn't really, I know it's like it's crazy, but these were the times, you know. So you had to learn that somehow, and I always wanted to find some ways to learn things, but it was really hard, you know, at then. And I feel like yeah, these days maybe people are not maybe they have like even too much knowledge around them, surrounding them, that it might be a little bit overwhelming. But I think it's finding a good compromise between like learning on your own and learning from the resources or from the proper you know, courses or school is very vital, right? So back then it was kind of hard, but of course, how it's going now, this is a screen grab from our station, so my portfolio is pretty versatile, I would say, and it's only a small percentage of work that I do, because even though you see all those works like on top, it's usually like 2-3 years old stuff, you know, so I don't really have new stuff under NDA that I can show yet. So that's why I also value a lot working on your own personal pieces. So sometimes I manage to squeeze in like a bigger portion of work on my own. And it's basically my goal also for the end of this year that I started a new project, and for the next year where I'm actually learning also new tools to really introduce more and more of my own personal series, because it's something that is really important in the end of the day. If you are creative, right? It's awesome to work on big projects, but at the same time, you also have to work on your own stuff, you know. So here are some of the credits that the companies that I work on, and the projects that I shipped and I have credits in. So as you can see, it's a little bit of diverse between the games and the movies. I work more in the movies these days, but you know, it's sometimes it changes, you know, like sometimes I work for a game, but I are direct like specific cinematic, you know, or I help you know, shape up the general look of the game. So I'm not really limiting myself to any of those projects, and I have a lot of projects that are really not even connected to movies and games, like architectural stuff, which is basically more like more towards like a realistic and grounded designs, and like doing basically daily stuff, you know, like designing buildings and stuff like that. So it's very big versatility, in my work. Of course, I love working on entertainment stuff, and that's basically what gives me a lot of knowledge and information, and at the same time keeps me hyped. So here are some of the credits. And let's talk about the job in general, because our talk today actually is not about me only, it's about my experience and if I really consider Concept Art as a dream job, right? And this is very important. So let's have a look into average person. Like you have 24 hours a day, of course. Normal people, like I have a lot of friends that are not really art related, or are not artists. They can appreciate it, but they of course work like 8 to 4 afternoon, and they have their own activities. Like they travel a lot, they have holidays. They try to manage like a certain amount of sleep, which is basically like a healthy approach. And every person can be somehow accompanied by this graph and put the numbers into like 1/3 per each duty per day, right? So you have like 8 hours sleep, sort of 8 hours job, and 8 hours of other after hours activities like gym, like a dinner with your wife or whatever, and this sort of stuff. But how it looks from my perspective, and being an artist, is a little bit more drastic. So don't get too scared by that. But I think it's based on my experience of how it looks. And even though it might look a little bit overwhelming in terms of like how less optimistic it looks comparing to like average person, I don't consider that being a bad thing, right? In general, because we are creative persons, and we, in the end of the day, do what we love, right? So that's why I also want to show it the reality of that, and that's not everything is so colorful as you might expect. But at the same time, it's like our choice, right? Like we don't need to work your ass off for like 15 hours, right? But if you love doing that, and if you don't treat it basically as just a job, go for it, right? So like 60% of the day for me usually calls like creative work. Like it can be actually putting into hours, like practically working on like a new commission, working on my own stuff, learning new tools, because many times it's actually that I learn new stuff after hours, and I don't really have anything to show because I'm learning something and it requires like weeks or months to learn something properly. And not gonna lie, I feel like the older I get, the more I know it, but at the same time, the slower I learn, some things. Like I feel like if I compare myself when I was like 18 or 19 and when I'm over 30 now, I feel like, yeah, those things, like I have to repeat a couple of times, like even many times, along the process to really understand what this specific tool, for instance, stand for, right? So creative work is definitely at least or above half of my day. And it might be even like doing scribbles on the napkin, or like I have some like a explosion in my head, and there's like a immediate idea that, oh, I want to do something that maybe I will keep this idea for later. Then I can take a screenshot or like can take a picture of that, and okay, I'm gonna use it later, right? So basically, creative work is all the time with me. Other activities like gym and swimming, of course, is very important, like to keep yourself in the movement. I learned that even though you can move all the time, it might be very hard to compromise that with amount of like of sitting and slouching over your work or over your workstation. But it's still very important to do it at least every day or every second day, right? Sleep, I try to keep a minimum like 4 or 6 hours. I know it might be not enough, but sometimes I sleep 4 hours, the other day I sleep 12. So I try to compromise it at least. And of course, every once in a while you do like a medical checkups if everything is in place, right? The rest is social life. It can vary as well. Like 5%, it might be like, oh, this guy is like this guy has no social life. I have a social life, but there are a certain amount of there are certain periods of time or certain days that I have to really be in the zone for just creative work. And yeah, the only social life I treat walking out with my dog and like spending time with my wife. So this is basically how I try to break it down. The rest is promoting your art. So basically, you are responsible for your brand, like I also like run other art-related business, like running focal point school, running a print shop, and try to really diversify not only my income, but also diversify what I do, because in the end of the day, you are doing creative work that might be very draining, like you can burn out very fast. So try to find also other activities. So this is basically how I see that from my day-to-day work, right? But what really a dream job stands for, right? What does it really mean? Is it something that when you are young and you dream about? Like, sure, but when I was young, when I was a kid, I didn't really plan on that, right? I didn't plan on like being a professional artist, being a professional illustrator or concept artist or designer, whatever. I just kept on doing that. I went to math and physics school later on, so I just really didn't have planned to follow the path of becoming a great artist or whatever, because I was not directed towards it. My parents were always supportive, and they like just always gave me the materials and like inspiration, like because my mother was also architect, and yeah, they gave me like a lot of like materials like paper and pencils. So yeah, keep on drawing, but you have to pass the school. So I went to math and physics high school, and then I didn't even know that I'm gonna be. It was at the time that I already got like a first sort of like a small commission, but I didn't know it's gonna be enough. It's gonna be that big of like a dream job, because it's the moment that I feel like what I do is like so heavy for me to really call it only a job, I would just quit. Like I just want to have fun with that. I want to have fun with that till the end of my life, basically. So I really want to carry on my job, my profession, as something that I still treat as a hobby. And this is for me a dream job. How I can carry on what I love, what I do, and basically call it still a hobby, right? So for some people, it might like they can imagine like these days, like concept artists becoming like really big, and people are looking up to concept artists and the projects that are being shipped by because of our job, working on big franchises, IPs, helping shaping up like a new projects, doing AAA movies or whatever. It's awesome, but for them it might be a little bit of vague picture of what is really a dream job. What this really concept art job stands for, right? So what people see is basically, I call it utopian picture of the success, right? So basically, in people's eyes, successful artists have everything perfect, like internet fame, richness, nice car, parties, holidays, overall happiness, everything is perfect, right? Like it might be like that, but it's not that easy, right? It's like you can compare that to like other other jobs, like maybe not to the same degree, because we are not there yet. We are not mainstream job, but you can look at like football players, for instance, and they have like a epic life full of richness and like everything is perfect. But I know it's not also that perfect. Like everyone has their obstacles, duties, and things like that. But getting back to art, like it's not as linear, and it's not as beautiful and colorful as we might expect. Of course, people see the results, so they see your work, they see the final results, so they see your portfolio pumped with like a big words, but they don't really see all the hours put into that. They don't really see all the sacrifice. So here are some of this extract of my work. So I'm not really vague in my words right now. So showing a little bit of my portfolio. Maybe some of you are familiar with those works. This is from different projects. Some of my personal stuff as well. So
Darek, which has been one of the most interesting of these projects? I see Love Dead Robots. Wow, amazing. Which is one of your favorites, for example, that you can say, okay, after all this hustle and after all this fighting behind the scenes, this is something I'm super proud of.
Yeah, definitely commercial stuff like Love Death Robots, Maze Runner, which was my first Hollywood movie, and a lot of like projects that are unannounced. It's awesome. But to be honest, to be totally honest, I love the most my personal pieces because I know I can spend my time on them. Like on this, for instance, like took me like 3-4 weeks to finish, so it was like, and I am longer that in time, like if I just combine all the hours, yeah, it might be like 2-3 weeks of work, but I made it for 2 months because I work like 1 hour this day, maybe another day I work like for 2 hours, and the other week I didn't work at all. And I always had like a fresh mind, so I just kept on grinding that, kept on cranking until I was happy with that. So this is basically where the most value for me is in my personal pieces. But at the same time, if I do stuff under the pressure of time for clients, of course, it's very rewarding if you work for Netflix, if you work for Sony, if you work for like EA and all those big companies. But you always work with certain limitations, right? You work under time pressure, you work under someone else's guidance, or you work with a specific with the specific vision for the project, and you are basically the one to design it, right? So you somehow sell your ideas, and that's awesome, and you got revenues from that. But at the same time, it's kind of rushed, like no one gives you like 4-5 weeks to complete one concept, right? Within 1 week, sometimes you have to have like 5 detailed concepts, right? So this basically changed drastically the output, right? So even though, yeah, I can tell that I'm happy with those works, I know maybe if I did it for myself, it might be even better, So maybe like maybe not, because sometimes you work with like like-minded people, and they are super super certain about their ideas, and that's awesome when you work with like directors or producers that actually have the vision. But yeah, it's basically, I'm of course proud of like working on a lot of companies and a lot of projects, but at the same time, when you are working this industry for like more than 7-8 years, and you start to notice that it's really important also to do at least once in a while your own stuff, because you are not judged. You can ask your friends, art friends, to judge your work, to help you develop that further, but you basically do what 100% stands for yourself, right? So you basically don't resign from your identity. It's like and it might be very complicated, because of course people hire me for my style, for my design sensibility, for my compositions, for my experience, and I of course try to leave as much of my own legacy in that work. But maybe
cool.
maybe time restrictions, or yeah, production timeline is very fast, and it won't really let you do stuff to that 100% degree that you really aim for your personal pieces, right? So for instance, I have one design that I developed right now, and this is part of like my own world. It's like a snippet of like a little bit bigger stuff, and I do that design for already like 2 months, because I don't rush it. I just do it when I want. I just do it when I feel inspiration, and I will also tell people how to get inspired in this stuff. But sometimes we are just creative minds, and yeah, of course you have to do the job because people pay you for that. But if I don't need to do the job, I need certain inspiration. I need a certain push. So I don't force myself, even though, yeah, in the end of the day, sometimes I lay in the bed and I feel like, holy shit, I didn't do enough today. I didn't do enough for myself. I didn't do enough to improve myself. I didn't do enough to learn something new. So as you can see, the insecurity is on a big level, and you constantly want to improve. But yeah, personal pieces are definitely something that I value the most, because they are that's like a never-ending perfection that you just chase, and you probably never reach, because nothing is perfect, and yeah, it's kind of like that. So yeah, do you want to add something?
Yeah, no. It's so mesmerizing, so cool to see your work and hear you talking. Thank you for answering my question. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you for yeah, very good question, because it's basically very important, to ask those questions. So what people don't really see. So this basically we get into behind the scenes. So if you remember my previous graph of everything was kind of linear, Successful artists are like rich, but rich is also not like you cannot really count that, because artist rich versus like super rich guys like poor still, so. But what people really don't see behind what's really behind the scenes, like, okay, you have certain like status, right? Because you work on it. Like we work as artists, to build and grow our brands, right? So internet fame, yeah, sort of. The richness, sort of. Okay, we have good money because it's a good industry for that, right? You can have nice toys, like nice car, like some people just buying screens that they can show their work in the studio. Like people have like a different sort of like a hobbies, and I value that. I love, like, for instance, cars, and once in a while, if I can manage to do that, I do that. So I don't party that much, and as you can see, it takes a very small percentage of my time, of my profile as a person. Holidays, unfortunately, I still need to work on that. I took my wife lately for like a 5 days holidays. It was awesome, and I kind of feel like I'm a workaholic, because after 4 days I felt already I need to go back. I need to draw, I need to create something. But definitely I should do that more often. So not once a year, not once every 2 years, at least I think couple times a year. Even like a small, like a short trips or short holidays would be very good. But based on my experience, I still need to practice on that, right? Overall happiness, I cannot say that I'm not happy, because it would be a total mistake, or like I would lie to you. But of course, as you can see on the previous graph, we had everything linear with like a happiness and like parties, nice car and everything. But here I actually added something that people don't really see behind the scenes. So you have a chronic pain. It can happen, right? You can have it like with your hands, with your back, with your eyes, with your neck or head. People have like all sorts of like chronic pain. I have chronic pain as well on my own. I live with the pain. I know how to manage that, at least to some degree. But I know most of my friends, our friends, have something to do with that, right? So it's basically every job, when you do that professionally, every job that you do it extensively, it costs you something, right? So it costs you probably some portion of health, right? So you gotta get used to that, to understanding that it's not that easy, that you just sit and draw. Like, you cannot sit 10 hours or 8 hours, because we are not designed for that as a human being, right? So definitely something along those lines is coming with the pain. Screwed relationships, of course, not every of your colleagues or not every of your friends can accept that you are always working, right? Or you're always like in a zone, or maybe you are not having the right mood to go out or whatever. Of course, some people can say like, those people are probably not your friends. Maybe yes, but at the same time, I know it's not helping you when you're basically always closed in your cave and doing art, so it has to be somehow balanced, so definitely this is taken into consideration as well. Insecurity, as you noticed already, I told you that I always feel like about like what can I improve, how can I learn something new, like I always like kind of feel guilty if I didn't do anything that I should learn, because there is always someone younger, there is always someone faster, there is always someone who learns faster and gets better, and you are staying you are leaving yourself behind because you are staying at one point, so insecurity takes a big chunk of like of my own experience and an artist profile. And I think it's not necessarily a bad thing, because it keeps you motivated and driven, right? So if I feel like I just don't know this, or I'm not good at that certain thing, I really want to learn, so it keeps you on your feet on the ground, and that you have to learn something new, right? Because I know also some artists that are successful and they're not learning anything new, and they are happy with where they are, right? But maybe a couple years later they are like waking up like, oh, but like the job is not coming to me, like it's like I stopped learning, I stopped developing myself, and I'm not happy anymore, so you have to always get this a little bit of like a drive in yourself. It might be called insecurity, but I wouldn't say it's a big thing, because it is very important to have that a little bit of ego pushed down, because artists are very big ego guys, usually. So so if you achieve certain status or certain level, it's always good to go down a little bit and like stay on the ground, because it keeps you motivated and it keeps you grinding more for your weaknesses, right? Because it's not possible to be awesome in everything, right? So chronic insomnia, definitely my sort of part that I definitely not happy with, and I have to work on that. Sometimes I just feel like I want to go to bed around 11 p.m. and I try to, and then I lay in the bed for 4 hours because I cannot fall. I can't fall asleep, So I just wake up and do something creative until I get burnout, or just basically it's a big problem. So that's definitely something to overcome, and you have to be prepared for that, because we work late hours as well. We work definitely above 8 hours a day. Even if you don't do practically anything, you still have to reply the emails, you have to manage your own company, you have to do tax, you have to, you can surround yourself with people to help you, but if you want to have everything under control, it still has to go through your hands, right? So caring about your career, it might be similar to basically building your brand, right? So you care about all other duties, like at least once in a while post something to social, like so people don't really think that you disappeared or whatever. So this is very important as well, right? So I think this graph shows the reality from a little bit different perspective. This is basically based on my experience, and hopefully it just shows that I call it the price of success. The price can be even higher. I'm not gonna scare you, but every success comes with price. It's very rare that you just do something just like that and the success appears, because for instance, if you want to learn and if you're gonna break into the concept art field, or if you want to be in this like very competitive industry, sometimes it's for some people it's very hard to break in. And I think it's the more people are coming to the industry, it might be a little bit harder all the time, but at the same time there's like also more companies growing, more projects are developing. So I think the need for creative people will always be there, especially that we develop also new technologies like VR and AR is basically becoming a thing. I think it's very important to learn how to stay relevant and how to basically sustain your position in the industry, right? Because breaking in is one thing, but staying on top of the game and staying in this competitive industry, I think it's even harder, right? So even from my experience, I can tell, like seeing people who are learning very fast and like very young, and they come into the industry, maybe they lack of experience, but they are learning very fast. So for us, like the guys that are already a couple of years, or maybe even older guys, that it's always demanding to like to keep a certain level and always try to learn something new. So you're still becoming, are competitive, right? And you are experienced, you're competitive, and you stay on the ground, because you don't let your ego fly off, because this is basically the road to failure, I would say. Yes, you want to add something, Eduardo?
Yes. I wanted to ask you specifically about these learnings that you use. How do you stay? It's like a professional sport player, right? You have to train, you have to compete, and then you have to always show with trophies or with contracts with big companies this thing. How do you stay fit for your career, Derek? What do you do that you think it makes you different? I mean, you mentioned that you stay creative very late at night, but what are the things that make you fit for the job?
I think it's very important also to like to learn how to efficiently learn things, right? Because sometimes you watch something, you watch some tutorial, or you try to learn some new techniques or technology, and you feel like nothing comes to your mind. Like you feel like dumb, like it's like I cannot assimilate that knowledge. But sometimes it requires time for your brain to process for certain things, right? And that also comes with the efficient learning. For instance, when I do my personal project right now, I try to learn new things along with this project progressing. So before that, I try to learn something by watching some tutorial and like try to replicate what the tutorial showed. But this time I try to inject the upcoming knowledge from the tutorials and inject that into my workflow already. So that's basically how I treated my whole career so far. So every new job, every new commission, I kind of treat it as something new to learn. I try to try new techniques. I try to, take up new challenges, because sometimes you have like you have possibility to like pick up the offers, right? You have like a couple offers a week or a couple offers a day, and you can pick up, okay, I'm gonna work on this because this is the most challenging. Like last year I worked on first time I worked properly on like some vehicle designs for Star Trek movie, and this somehow sparked the idea that, okay, I definitely want to do that on my own as well. I want to learn and build my portfolio also around tech stuff, maybe some vehicles. And I also develop it on my own right now, because sometimes the job gives you inspiration and gives you this specific push. So you have to go out of your comfort zone, and maybe you will prioritize specific projects over the others because you think you will learn more. So that's how I somehow stay relevant in this industry, because I always try to push boundaries for myself, even though sometimes I cannot really show that yet. I work on the side on my own things that basically reflect what I learned maybe last year because of that specific job. So this is how I stay fit to this competitive market. Hope that answer your question.
Very cool. Very, very interesting, Darek. Thank you for that.
You're welcome. So okay, let's maybe go a little bit about we talk about the job, we talk about the how to what's the reality of this sort of like a dream job, but what I do and what can you do in order to treat your job as something that might be your passion, that's not just another job, right? So I made this graph because it might be the things that inspire you, that might be the things that keeps you hyped, that keeps you excited, that keeps you basically driven. So first thing I would definitely do is traveling, right? Like traveling the world, like traveling new place. I know it's very hard these days, like we are in the pandemic times, and I have to say that for the last 2 years I didn't really travel, but before that I traveled a lot. Sometimes I travel because I was invited to some other events, and I always, when I visit a new place, I always try to use that trip for staying at least 2-3 more days, that I can basically explore the area. But I think it's very important even to travel outside of your area of living. Like I believe that, for instance, in Poland, I know there is a lot of places that are sort of like uncharted, and they are beautiful, and you can go to the nature, and like in every time of the year, even when it's like a windy fall, you can go to like some mountains and like walk around the forest that are becoming like a red and yellow because of the fall, and it's awesome. Like this sort of stuff always gives you a new idea. It keeps you fresh, it keeps your mind open, and it basically let you explore new things, like even on the microscopic level. Like I remember still when I was working on unfortunately canceled Mouse Guard movie a couple of years ago, and I went to the forest and we had to do designs of the world seen from the point of view of the mice. So I remember when I was going to the forest, took some photos and did like some photo shooting, and I remember that I just tried to get closer to the ground, get closer to like a tree trunks, to basically see what small animals can see with their eyes, like trying to get inspired, trying to get immersed into the world. And I guess traveling takes a big part of that, So I know we are in a very tough times, but fortunately things are still evolving and getting better. So you can at least go back to other places already. And I think it basically gives a lot. It gives a lot of input to keep your work excited, because even when you do for like photo research for your project, or you want to get inspired because maybe you work on like some fantasy genre project about like a big world, big forest world, even like a big other planets that basically have like similar atmosphere to Earth, you can go to other places and basically get inspired by that. So I think it takes a big chunk of like how can we get inspired and why it's so beautiful to do our job, right? The other thing is art books. Like I have some with me lately that every once in a while I, for instance, order like a new art books. I'm very much in the alien mood again, so I ordered like 4 different art books in last month, and to get inspired about their design process and like how to build the sets, how to design vehicles. So I basically try to feed myself every once in a while with a new inspiration, new topics, new artists, new projects. And sometimes it's good also to revisit something that you might be hyped about a couple years ago or back in the days, and you go back and maybe find the artwork from this project, because this gives you a different perspective of how this project evolved, right? Walks around, of course, it's very similar to traveling, so it's very important to refresh your mind once in a while. Like I do walks at least 3-4 times a day right now. It helps a lot that I have a dog, so I have to go out with him. But I do at least a couple of kilometers every time that I walk out with him, and just with a very like a normal tempo. It's very good to just look at the world from the different perspective, right? What I really love also is the movies, right? I'm a big movie guy, and I love watching, for instance, movies that are inspiring to me, even a couple times, even a couple times a year. Lately I watched again Alien and Aliens with my wife, and it's probably was the third time this year that I did like this little like cinema time at home. So of course, reading books, reading interesting articles, watching documentaries, it takes a big chunk of my learning process as well, and how not to treat my job as a job. It's basically, it gives me a lot of new information, because working as a concept artist, you have to know a little bit of everything. I know it's very broad, but the more you know about the real world, the real technology, the science, the history, the more hard-driven, the more in-depth concept artist you can become, and your designs can basically speak for yourself much more maturely, right? So meeting new people, of course, very important, right? As you remember, social life can play a very small percentage of time when you are in a very hectic production schedule, but still, like, it's very important to meet new people and to get exchange experience, and get inspired by them, because they don't need to do art, right? They don't need to be art related, but they can be very interesting people, and they can learn, they can teach you something, or you can actually assimilate some knowledge from them by just talking to them, So meeting new people and meeting wise people is very important. Taking on challenging tasks, so pretty similar to what I already mentioned and answered to Gerardo. Trying new things, learning new stuff, it's very challenging all the time. Every year is becoming more and more harder. The older you get, the harder it will be. So that's the reality. Efficient resting, that's something that I mentioned already, that I have to work on that, and I definitely want to incorporate that more in the future. So if you are on the beginning of your path, don't forget about it, please, because it's very important to keep your mind reset, to keep your body relaxed, because there are some very intense times that you don't have that much time for resting. But if you know how to even find a little bit of break between, even 5-10 minute stretch can be a blessing for you, you know. And learning new tools, as I said already, right? So setting new goals and staying hungry. Here's a picture of my dog Pixel. He's always hungry, so just that's why this equation is basically coming to this graph, to this little slide. I always set new goals, right? I don't like to think ahead 5-10 years, because it's not possible. Like, I'm a very realistic person, and I know you cannot really predict what happens in 5 years or 10 years. I don't want to sound like some dark sense of humor guy, but you never know. You never really know. I always try to treat life day by day. So I set new goals in a very short limited amount of time. Okay, so I have already some goals for like upcoming couple months, but try to stay realistically and staying on the ground very firmly and certain, right? So I set up new goals because it helps me staying hungry, and I always want to do something better, or I want to always do something new. And this is basically what keeps me driven, because sometimes I talk to people and they see like a chunk of work that I've done so far, and they say like, yeah, you're still young, but how can you get so how can you stay so hungry about it? I always try to send something new for myself. So whether it's from trying new technique, or like trying new topic, or maybe building something new, or maybe doing like some new art related stuff. I started school, Focal Point School 3 years ago, and this was just one of those goals that I had in mind, and I was hungry because doing commissions were not enough for me, and I wanted to give back to the community throughout all those years, and that's why I set up new goal, right? And now my next goal is probably something different, right? Maybe I don't really want to spoil it yet, but every once in a while I set a new goal, but it's not really much ahead of time, because I try to stay realistic and on the ground, So what are the characteristics that help you set your mind properly? Like, I think some of the stuff I already mentioned, but this is like a small sort of like a brainstorm of things that I think this might help you if you are, for instance, not decided on what you want to do. Because every term that we have a new students, we have people who, for instance, they like art, but they don't know what they really want to do, or they don't really know exactly the role that they want to take for. So these are the characteristics of the mindset that helped me tremendously. And I made this graph just for you, so you can basically try to associate yourself with, and maybe it will help you get on the right track. So of course, driven, optimistic, open-minded, enthusiastic, smart. Smart is basically about, as I said already, efficient learning. So being smart with the topics you pick up, being smart with like a number of studies you do things efficiently. Don't do the quantity over quality. Like the quality is always more important. Responsible, of course, focused, hungry for more, being natural. Don't try to be something or someone that you don't feel you are. Like, for instance, for last year I became like a huge sucker for like a vehicle design, for instance, in my process. So I started like doing all sorts of stuff like that. It was partly because of the job that I got, right? But it directed me towards a specific route that I want to follow, and it might not be natural before. Maybe 2-3 years ago, if I just try to force myself to do vehicles, I didn't feel it was natural. Sometimes things need time, and you have to grow up to certain things, right? So become natural, never fake, never try to do things that you're not happy with, or you're not really feeling. So I love, for instance, character design, but I don't do that much, and I don't try to push it. Maybe at a certain period of my life, I will be excited about it, and I will neglect or yeah, I would just push back environments and vehicles and just focus on characters. Who knows, but I don't really push it. So I try to stay natural to what I really want and what I really feel. Being curious, of course, it helps you learn new stuff all the time. Hardworking and inspiring is very important. Inspiring, especially when you work with people. For some projects, I work already with some people. Some of my students, I just want to give them also possibility to work in this industry. So if I have the project that needs more hands, I would say, and I need help with, yeah, I can get my students to work with me, and yeah, being inspiring to them is very important. And of course, our motto from Focal Point School, motivated, dedicated, discipline, is very important, because all those three is like a trio that basically builds your charisma and your characteristics on overall throughout your whole life. At the beginning, you can be driven, you can be optimistic, you can be open-minded, but then when the time comes and you become older and older, you still have to stay motivated, dedicated, and disciplined, because this is basically what lets you stay in the game. And what can you do now after this talk to set your mind? So basically, couple the most important aspects, I would say, just to tidy up the knowledge. Study topics that inspire you. So if you want to study, for instance, values or lighting or colors, study something that inspires you. For me, it was movies. So I did a lot of movie stills. I did a lot of movie keyframes just to learn how the colors, how the lighting, how the mood works, and it kept me inspired, it kept me hyped, and I studied something new, I learned something new by doing something that I like. That's the most important thing. You have to have fun with that, keep grinding, signing up for courses or school that basically learn your proper approach. I think, of course, it might be a little bit like self-marketing, but Focal Point School, what we do in there is basically our path, our experience, just basically reflected through our students, right? So we basically share what they can do, what the students can do in order not to make mistakes, how they can basically learn stuff and still having fun with it. Because I remember when I was after high school, I went to fine art school and I didn't have fun. I had I was about to do some studies that I didn't feel, still life, for instance, and they gave me some couple marks and flowers and yeah, just paint on the canvas. But if they give me a movie still, it's oh, this is much more interesting. So I try to always give my students something that keeps them hyped. It's nothing is worse than boring teaching, right? Nothing is worse than a boring education, right? So I want to always keep people hyped about what we do. And we always try to translate that knowledge through our students in a project. It's fun for them, right? Be versatile, but don't forget about your main thing. So of course, as you notice, I talked about vehicle designs and what I do these days and what I try to improve upon, what I try to build my portfolio around. But I'm never gonna, at this point, I'm not ready to neglect my environment design skills that people basically hire me for 90% of time. So this is basically, it's important to learn new things, to basically rebranch yourself a little bit, but still staying and standing for what you are known from, right? Work up your routine is very important. So yeah, a study routine, if you study even 30 minutes a day on specific topic, I guarantee you within a month or within a year, you will see huge improvement. It's basically keeping you up to date with your own routine, right? Understanding efficient learning. So basically examples that I gave with movie tools, you just try to learn something that you like, buy something that you like and treat it efficiently. So you don't basically do boring stuff that don't really give you much information, right? And of course, in the end of the day, don't overwork yourself. You will overwork yourself already a lot in this industry, but don't try to destroy your body, destroy your mind at the very beginning, because yeah, the results can be very drastic and devastating. So always take proper rest, learn how to work efficiently. I know it's very hard, but I hope at least it gives you a good input and good insight of how you can basically do those things in order to keep your job as a dream job, or keep these things as something that you don't really treat as a job. I don't treat it as a job ever. I treat it as my passion that I turn to job, not other ways around. So that's would be it.
Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Thank you so much, Darek, for sharing your knowledge with us. And thank you for explaining a little bit of what is being a true digital artist like yourself, and not only seeing the tip of the iceberg, but the whole work behind it and the whole resources that you are using. I have one question from the audience, and it says, what would you recommend to the people who are beginning their career? And unfortunately, we only have 5 minutes. So if you want to debrief on this question and maybe do some recommendations, and if you want to add something else, it would be really cool. I really like the photo of your dog Pixel, and the name is quite interesting.
Pixel. Yeah.
Very nice.
Thank you for having me, of course, and hope this was helpful and you guys find it insightful. So what I would recommend for people that want to get into is basically, I think I covered quite a lot about like what can you do, what you shouldn't do, but I think it's very much important that you have to listen to your heart. Like people, I know artists like that I grew up with, and we all were a little bit different. Like one guy prefer like doing vehicle design, the other guy prefer like keyframe. Always try to stay the close to your heart in the beginning. Even though you want to shape up things or the knowledge or crank up the skills that you feel you're lacking, you can always do that on the side, but always try to stay true to yourself, because that's why I said it's very important to stay natural. Like you don't try to be an artist that you are not. Definitely you're not. And maybe when you grow up, maybe some things come, and I would say if you're just starting out and you want to get into this field, do stuff that keeps you hyped, because that's nothing more beautiful that you are hired by something that you love doing. So imagine that you are liking to draw nights, or nights on the horses, like a beautiful nights or beautiful sceneries. And if you love doing that, put the hours, put the effort so it stands out in your portfolio, right? And then, of course, you can learn other topics on the side. But if you want to build a portfolio and you get hired, you have to have certain things that basically helps you attract people, right? Attract the right clients, attract the right producers, directors that will basically get you on board, right? So I would say, shape up the skills, shape up the topic that you like the most, or if you don't have it yet, try to find something that keeps you hyped. That I don't believe that no one has anything that they like the most in their life. I definitely think that every time, whether it's like a stylized art, whether it's a cartoon, whether it's like a specific topic, whether it's a history or technology, there is always something that you like the most, and build your career around it. Of course, being versatile is very important, and I always stand for versatility. But first, to attract some people, you have to build around something that you love the most.
Very cool. Very interesting. Okay, I think that's it for today. We only have half a minute left. I really want to thank you a lot, Darek. For the people who don't know, we are also hustling, trying to get him reserve time for this session because he's very busy, but we managed to do it. So I thank everyone at their homes, and especially to you, Darek. As you know, I wish you only the best in your career, and I thank you again for participating with us at Wacom.
Awesome. Thank you very much, guys, for having me. And yeah, good luck for everyone, and good luck for the rest of your event.
Cool. Then have a nice night, and we say goodbye to everyone. Thank you.
Bye bye. Bye bye.